Today on the podcast, I had Adam Whitney, an incredible real estate investor and entrepreneur. He is a retired Marine and he did multiple tours in Iraq. And hearing about his story was just jaw dropping in the fact that he came from nothing in Detroit and built his way to now multiple seven-figure businesses that more or less run themselves, and how he fills his cup through his coaching program, Seven Figure Flipping. They have hundreds of members and are really out there changing lives. I don't often publicly endorse people's coaching programs, but when you talk to Adam, his authenticity is just off the charts. I mean, he is a great example of putting in the work and that simple scales and believing in yourself and embracing failure and repetition. I can see how his coaching style is not only infectious, but gets incredible results. His formula is building up an active income stream to deploy into assets that produce passive income and set you up for real wealth, real opportunity, everything that we're about on this Real Freedom podcast. So without further ado, Mr. Adam Whitney. Welcome to the Real Freedom podcast. Today I have Adam Whitney with us. Adam, how are you?
Awesome, man. I'm pumped to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. Your background and the amount of businesses that you've been involved in and taken to multiple seven figures is really, really impressive. And I want to dive in right away to the origin of that. I know you just exited the active service for the Marines recently, right?
Yeah, man. June 10th.
Okay. June 10th. So we're filming this in late August. So 2.5 months ago, barely. Let's start there. How in the heck have you started all of these businesses and brought them to success while still being active duty? I mean, that just seems unfathomable.
Yeah, that's such a good question, man. Well, first off, success is relative. I always feel like there's a ton more I could be doing. I could be improving and making things better, more efficient. So I'm not sure that I feel like I'm some big success, but honestly, I started probably how most people start. I want to get into real estate and build. I'm kind of losing purpose in my W-2, my job, serving in the Marine Corps. So you got to understand, when I joined the Marine Corps in 2004, we were in combat, and the Twin Towers got hit in 2001, and there was a legitimate unison of the whole country, and it was just such a calling for me at the time. And if you fast forward to 2014, the wars are all winding down, and I'm going up in rank, which means I'm sitting in an office in a cubicle and making PowerPoints, and I'm doing a lot less of painting my face and walking around the woods and shooting guns and stuff like that, which is part of the job in the military, especially when you're younger.
Yeah.
So I just felt like something was missing for me, and I'd kind of considered real estate. It's been in the back of my mind, and I just got really obsessive about it. And I had the same goal that everybody else had, which was, I just want to if I could just get $10,000 of passive income, it could change my life.
Yeah, 100%, right? And I think as you get into this over time, you realize that's really just the tip of the iceberg, right? Time is your friend with real estate. And I know we want to dive into how to best allocate, your active income into building up that passive income. But there's something to be said about military. We try to hire anybody we can from ex-military. Thank you for your service, by the way. You strike me as a no excuse guy. When you don't have excuses and you have extreme ownership and you take accountability, usually good things happen. Can you talk to me about how that background has paid dividends into your businesses?
Yeah, and I think it kind of also touches on your first question too. It's how did you do this while being active duty? Well, I did it on the margins. I just worked it was so important to me. I was so called to do it that I was in California at the time, Ryan, and my market was out in the East Coast. So I could get up at 4 a.m. and work from 4 to 7 calling people. And then I could go to work at 7, right? I could go out at lunch. I could call people. And really what you see, and I see this a lot too, a lot of military guys or guys from, the police force or just, things like that. We are trained, and it's just beat into us that you are done when the work is done.
Yeah.
You're not there. There's no 9 to 5. Like you just accomplish. The only option is to accomplish the mission. So where a lot of people, this stuff might feel heavy to them because it's doing extra stuff. To me, it's just an opportunity to like achieve this thing, like accomplish this mission that we're setting off to accomplish. Whether that's, building my personal net worth or doing more deals in our active company or getting more efficient or building the team, like all the things that you learn that you have to do in order to gain the velocity that ultimately, once you realize it, it's like, how do I go faster? I got to increase my active income. And how do I do that faster? And it's doing things like you and I do, where we go find these discounted properties and we create a spread on these things. But yeah, it's mission accomplishment, man. That's like the number one thing. It's like you just work until it's done. And there's no feeling towards it. It's just, that is what it is.
Yeah. And I think too, I'd be curious your thoughts. How does the military treat failure and the mindset of embracing failure and pushing yourself to the limits?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I've never been asked that, but that is a really good question because one thing the service does really well is training. Like, goodness gracious, man, if we're going to go do a live fire, meaning we're shooting actual weapon systems, we will mentally rep it as a team. We'll go out there and we'll dry rep it. What means we'll go physically do it, what we call a dry run, which is like not actually shooting bullets, like multiple times. We'll do individual practice, then we'll do team practice, and then we'll do the next size practice. Like we put so many repetitions into these things that we do. And here's the thing, we get put into environments to fail so that you can learn very quickly. Obviously, we're not putting anybody's life in danger more than it is inherently from what we do.
Sure.
But what we want people to do is get put into the hardest, most harsh conditions we can put them into. We want them to go through all the decisions that we think that they might be faced with. And it's okay if they fail. It's actually better if they fail a little bit because they're going to learn from that mistake. And then when it's game on and it's life or death, you now have created an experience where the mistakes you made in the past, you're highly unlikely to make them again.
Yeah. I think that's so interesting because as you were talking about viewing waking up early and making calls as an opportunity and not a burden, right? And I'm thinking to myself, well, why is it that people view it as a burden instead of an opportunity? And I really think it comes back down to this fear of failure. And what you're saying is in the military with the highest stakes, right? People's actual lives are at stake. Failure is the way to progress forward the fastest, to learn from your mistakes and to ultimately achieve a mission that you never would have been able to do hadn't you failed. Like failure was the requirement to be able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just, you get so much experience. Like, if you think about somebody coming into the military, they're like 18 years old, they're babies. I was a baby. I didn't know anything about life. I thought I knew everything, but I knew nothing. And then they just spend the next 2 decades of my life getting tens of thousands of repetitions. I think it was Malcolm Gladwell, right? 10,000 hours to become an expert. The military talks about that all the time. Like, you can't become an expert until you have 10,000 hours. And like for us in our industry, we got to get on the phones. Like, you're not going to get good on the phones unless you're on the phones. And oh, by the way, Ryan, I get a little butterfly in my stomach when it's time to call. I start to get nervous. I also don't want to do it either. Like, that's like the same misnomer as if you go do something hard in the military. If I got to go do something hard physically, even though I'm going to complete it, it still hurts.
Yeah,
It's
of
supposed
course.
to.
Yeah. Exactly. That's when the most growth occurs, right? And still to this day, I'm with you. Even when like I already know I'm about to close a deal and I'm just about to make that closing call, there is that little feeling of nervousness of like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
here we go. And then I'm like, dude, what are you doing? You've done this 1,000 times. Just press the damn call button. But it's so funny that we we still have that. And to some extent that never goes away. It's just your overpowering confidence from all those reps completely diminishes any self-doubt, really.
Yeah, it certainly gives you the courage to know that you've done this before, you've experienced this before. You have a little feeling because you're doing a literal uncomfortable thing, like calling somebody else and trying to buy their property. And Yeah, it's like just do it. Just do it. The more you just do it, the easier it'll get. You'll always have the butterflies, in my opinion. You'll always kind of be like, oh, I got to make these calls. But you pick the phone up and you go.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you said all that. And I'd like to tie that into kind of the opposite end of that, which is I have so much opportunity. How do I know what to focus on and what to pick? You're obviously somebody that has juggled this very well or not well and learned from your mistakes and then gotten better. But how did you go about like which business do I start first and which one gets my focus? Because I think the best thing about real estate is there's so many ways to make money. The worst thing about real estate is there's so many ways to make money. And
Yep.
you have like your focus is such a limited quantity. How did you dissect that like in the early days and then how has that transformed now?
First off, I didn't have a master plan. It was the opportunities came when they came, and when it was the right time, it was the right time. So you have to really just get started on one thing. So for me, like I said, I wanted to buy rentals. So I started buying literal rent, like on the market at market value rentals, turnkey. And I was making probably like almost six figures, but not in the military. Like I've been around for a while, long enough to make enough money that I could save. And my wife and I were actually saving 40% of our income at the time. Like we
Wow.
were like all in on our financial health. And we would save up money and we would put 30 or 40 grand down on these rental properties in Milwaukee, but it was so slow, man. So like my first business is like the rental property business. I can only save up 30 or 40 grand like once a year.
Yeah.
And then I literally remember building a spreadsheet. If I buy one this year and then it produces this much cash, then with my current savings rate, and then I use that other cash, then I can buy two the next year. And I like modeled this whole thing out, which was ridiculous because it was a terrible idea in the first place. I felt really good about the spreadsheet. My wife wasn't that
Oh, I'm
excited, but
sure.
so I modeled the whole thing out. And then what I realized was like, I can't do that. It's too slow. So then the next business becomes, well, how do I do it faster? I got to get these things cheaper. I got to be able to leverage better, more effectively. I got to raise private capital. So I went and found a community like yours or other communities that I could buy some speed, bought some speed, got the playbook, just started running the play. And by the way, I sucked at it at first. And it was like I was cold calling in Tampa. I watched this couple give a presentation at this event, and I was like mind blown. Wow, they can just call people. I started cold calling in Tampa, and then I had to hire a VA because I needed more volume of dials. I just wasn't getting enough,
Yep.
and it took me like 5 months to get a deal. It was so painful, man. But then once I got this deal. I'm sorry, I'm so excited about this because this is like the
Yeah.
best time in business. I got no
Absolutely.
big staff, no team, not a bunch of overhead. It's just like me on the phones. I got this first deal, and then over the next 6 weeks, I literally knocked down nine in a row, and it was all from primarily follow up. But this first guy, his first deal, it was in Lakeland, Florida. I called him and I offered him 60 grand. And he was like maybe in his 80s, like, oh, I'm not, I got somebody who's offering me 95. I'm like, well, what everybody told me to say, well, why haven't you taken it? And he said, I'm going to take it. And this was on a Friday. I'm
Yep.
like, dang it, man, maybe I messed this up. I don't really know how to underwrite well. So I go back and like, I run the numbers and I made a mistake. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can offer this guy 91.5. Call this guy back and I say, hey Ryan, sorry man, it's Adam again. Listen, forgive me. I'm just a dumb Marine. I don't do math well. I can actually pay you 91,500 for the property, and then I hang up. So I'm like thinking this guy's never calling me back, right? And I literally said those exact words to this guy.
Yeah.
Monday morning, I'm at work and my phone rings. I step out, I take this call, and he's like, "Hey, Adam, yeah, that other guy fell through. I'm going to take your offer." I had an agent help me fix what I could offer. Like she fixed my ARV. I called that agent and she's like, I said, "Hey, I'm going to get this house." She goes, "My mom will buy it." I was like, "Will she pay me like 105 or I think I sold it to her for like 105." I made,
Dude.
whatever, 15 grand. I was like, this works. It's amazing.
Yeah. And I
Wholesaled it
that
to her.
that proof of concept moment is just, I mean, I'll never forget where I was when I did my first deal. I was like in my corporate engineering office, like in a side room, like, oh my gosh, this is real. And then your mind explodes because you're like, what? Like everything that I've known my whole life up to this point has told me that I have to like cash in this, basically my time for money in a W-2 job, and there's a limit on how much I can earn. And then that just like takes the lid off of everything, and you're like, how could I just replicate this and do this as many times as humanly possible?
Yeah, that's it, man. And then, from there, it's like I go from rentals, so I'm a rental guy to a off-market guy and then people start asking me to raise capital, right? So I'm doing a little bit of flipping, a little bit of wholesaling,
Yep.
and I'm not like the biggest guy in the world. We're maybe doing 60 deals a year, 80 deals a year, somewhere in there. So not like a lot, right? It's only like 2 or 3 years later. And people just kept like asking me to raise capital. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, that's not my game. Oh, I had tried to go into multifamily in the past. I didn't like it. It was super slow. And we had a whole deal fall apart. That was a whole nother story. But people kept asking me to raise capital. I kept saying no. I kept saying no. Then a team that I was super familiar with, an operator team, they were making some changes. They reached out to me like, hey, we're gonna get this deal. Do you want to be a part of this? I'm like, immediate response same as that. Right? No, I'm not really interested in raising capital. And the reason I didn't want to raise capital for a multifamily team as like a co-GP was because I would only want to bring my investors in if I could have a yes or no decision on everything.
Right.
So then they responded and said, this is my current team now. They said, no, man, like we want you to be like a full partner, full super majority vote. Like you have yes or no decision authority. Like we want you to come on the team, the primary GP team. And I decided to jump into that with that team, which been a blessing. Like that team fully functioning, highly effective. So then that's how I'm like I started doing multifamily, and I had done a bunch of education and been down this path once. So I was sharp on some of those skills. I wasn't like I don't know anything about multifamily. It just, the opportunity now comes up for that. And then I bought equity in a coaching business and got asked to be a part of it. And then they asked me to become the CEO. And all the meanwhile, Ryan, I'm like building my team and getting the right people around me. I'm hiring a lot of the wrong people. Like I went through sales reps, like you change your socks in my business, just like anybody else who tries to get good sales reps. You got to find
Yep.
the right people. So I'm getting people around my team, like people that I love, that I can bring with me on this journey, that I can help them be successful. And those people who are committed, I owe a lot to those people, and I will do whatever it takes to make them successful, which means that I need to be successful. So it helps push me along. Long story
Incredible.
short is when the opportunity came up and I had the time and I had built the enough of the mechanism to like I have some bandwidth to do this new thing, is when I expanded over time. It wasn't like first I'm going to do this, and then second I'm going to do this, and then third I'm going to do this. I was just like doing, and
Yeah.
opportunities came. The harder I worked, the better I did, the more opportunities that came. It was such a weird phenomenon.
So what kind of time horizon are we talking about here, from the time you did your first deal to, doing the 60 to 80 a year, then getting asked to raise private money, then taking an equity stake and being CEO of a coaching business? Like, what is this time frame?
So I bought my first property as an investment in 2017, and then I bought some more. I did some private lending. I invested in some syndications, and then in 2020, that was when I decided to go in all in on off market. And which I wish I would have been like 2 years earlier and had enough
Yeah.
like experience to make all this money off institutional buyers. I did a little bit, but looking back, I could have made a lot more money. Yeah, so 2020, I kind of went in on that off market stuff. By 2021, we were building up and scaling. I merged with another business owner who wanted to just be more of a silent partner coach, and that was Bill. Bill owns the coaching company, so I just kind of been coming along in that kind of way.
Okay.
So
Right
pretty
on.
short, really, really 2020. Seriously, I mean, if you really think about my journey, yes, I was an investor buying rental properties, but like a serious investor where I'm building businesses. October 2020 was really my start.
What prompted about that moment the stars aligned where you're like, I need to go all in on this business wise and stop dipping my toes in the pool?
Yeah, I think it was a combination of things. I was frustrated. I'm working in a W-2. I know you know this story because it's probably you and many others too. And it was so slow, man. Like
Yeah.
I got exposed to this path where there's a path out there where the harder I work, the more I can achieve, which isn't the same in the military infrastructure. Like it's a time-based thing. You have to hit
Right.
certain time amounts to get promoted. Can you go a little faster? Yes, but I was going as fast as they would let me already. And I'm just like, man, this is so slow. So that really was the big driver. And all the meanwhile, I'm also like learning and getting exposed to all these people in the industry and seeing like I'm just seeing what's possible. I'm seeing people out in front of me and I'm looking around going, man, I'm pretty sure I could do that too. Like that person isn't that special. There's no unique skill set. They don't have an MBA. I don't know. There's like very few people I think will outwork me. So I'll give it a run. Like I need to do this. And then I had to learn, right? I was like, I need to feel like I don't know any of this stuff. I've been podcasting and all the other stuff, but I had to like, where's the blueprint? I went and got the blueprint, paid for speed, and then it was off to the races.
Yeah. What kept you in active duty for so long? Why not exit earlier?
Oh man, that's a good question. So, gosh, you're really good at this, man. The the I was you hit this inflection point. Like I got a wife, right? I had my first kid in 2012, my second kid in 2017, and right around that 2017 time, I'm like rethinking my life. It's like I'm having the dad crisis. It's like I got all these requirements. Like, what am I gonna do? Like, what's the best path forward? How am I gonna do all this? And so I'm now in 2017, I'm now like 7 years, 2018, 29, 2020, I'm like 4 years from being able to retire. Right. So along this journey, like I'm just getting closer to the point where it does, quote unquote, doesn't make sense to get out and not
Yeah.
just retire. But I did try to retire. And the reason I didn't, not retire, I tried to get out
Yeah.
right around my 17-year mark. So 3 years ago, I told my wife, I said, about 3.5, 4 years ago, I said, dude, I can make way more money doing this. Like, I don't need this job. I'm going to leave. And my wife's response to me was like, I can't believe you're not going to finish what you started and you're just going to quit. And I was
Oh,
like,
trigger.
okay, she got me.
Trigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then I thought about it and I'm like, yeah, you're right. Plus, I had kind of already sold her that I was going to stay in and we were making all this sacrifice because, there's great back end benefits. So, like,
Yeah.
in the military, when you retire, you get 50% of your base pay, which is not a lot for me. That would have been like 4 grand a month for the rest of my life. Plus, if you got some disability, it could be up to 8 grand a month for the rest of your life and healthcare for
Yeah.
until you die. So, 8 grand a month, not the end of the world, but for my wife it was important and for my family it was important. So I was like, fine, I'll just do both. So I was
Yeah.
like, building a business and doing the active duty thing. And then as soon as I could retire, I put my papers in and I did.
But I love that it wasn't an excuse for you. It was I'm going to do both. Like, I'm going to find a way, you know?
Yep.
Like, you can't, and that's, it's a little funny, like, as entrepreneurs, to be asked if we're going to quit something or give up on something is the exact reason for us to continue it to the end, right? We got that competitive nature. It's like if somebody says you can't do something, it's like, hold my beer and watch this,
Yeah,
right? And so
exactly.
I love that because that's the stick to itiveness. You can't beat somebody that never quits. And if you just do something for forever and you play an infinite game, you're going to become the best version of yourself and you're going to have the things in life that you wanted and then some. So take me back throughout this whole process. You're investing in deals, you're doing multiple businesses. What's been your greatest or most beautiful failure up to this point?
Oh man, a couple monetary failures. I'll just touch on a couple monetary failures. At one point, probably 2019 or 2020, I invested in two Amazon automation stores.
Mm,
Like, I had a partner and I think we spent like 55 grand collectively, and they both were basically a loss. I don't, maybe we lost 30 grand in total when it was all said and done, but that was a dumpster fire. So that was tough. It just never feels good to lose any money. And then actually my worst loss from a deal perspective, I'm actually having my worst loss right now on a flip that I did in Alabama. I had underwritten it at 415 on the ARV. It was kind of rural. There wasn't really any data in this particular area. It was off the beaten path compared to where all the data was pulling from. And I thought we were pretty conservative, but we had a good number at 415. So I buy this flip, and then I found this agent who had been an appraiser for a long time, like 20 years, and she was an agent. And she was just like, look, nothing around here is selling for under 500K. Like, I think you need to list it higher. To my Went against my gut. We listed it. We first we were doing the rehab, and I had to replace the septic. There was an extra. I went from a 45K rehab to an 80K rehab,
Yeah.
which was
Ouch.
already going to squeeze the margin. And then took it to market about a year ago, and at the 460, got price dropped all the way down to 365. I did end up getting asking offers, to which I said no, I actually want 380. And then I got asking offers at 380, and I said no, I'm just going to refinance it because I got it appraised at like 408. So it kind of sucks. It was a decision I had to make. Like, do I want to just lose 80 grand, cut my losses, not have to think about this ever again? Or do I want to refinance it, and at least my 80 grand is in equity? And what do I believe will happen in the next couple of years? I personally believe that we won't see a 21 market, but we'll see an improving market through 2026. And I'll look to exit that house in 2026. I'm actually refinancing it this week.
Right on. Well, I love that. First of all, you have more than one exit strategy when things go wrong because, gosh, if it was more than 80K or something like that, as an entrepreneurs, we always want to be pushing progress forward. Something that I've done with myself is probably gone to an extreme like that where I want to see how big I can fail because I know that that's when I learn the most. But then, like, you don't want it to be a knockout blow. Like, you want to be able to recover from it and learn from it. Because I've lost way more than 80K on one particular development deal that's not going well for us right now, or we just finished. But any thoughts on like how do you know for yourself? How far do you push the limit there in terms of progress and like how aggressive you are with risk taking?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, I think this is kind of I try never to lose. My goal is to never lose. Obviously, like I'm not like, ooh, this could be big rewards, but there's like big downside. I'm very intentional. I look at contingency plans just like I would do in the military. I'm big on the data. In this case, I went against what the data told me, and I trusted somebody else who I made an assumption. So one thing that we talk about in the military when you're doing planning is during planning, you have to make assumptions, right? I'm making a plan to do something. During planning, I have to make some assumptions. So like buying a house and flipping it, you are making future assumptions. For us in planning, any assumption that you cannot validate is carried forward as risk. It's risk that you are accepting. So I try to think through that lens, and I try to always have an asymmetric bet. I got a little bit complacent on this particular deal. It was a lead that came in that was a little bit outside of my area, but it was a deal, right? It was at a discount, and there was opportunity, and I just kind of got blinded by opportunity and jumped on it and said, okay, fine, well, I'll buy it myself type deal, like instead of wholesaling it, which was my original exit strategy I was working on. Couldn't really move it because I didn't know that area well enough and didn't have the software at the time. And I bought it. You know, it was a bad decision on my part, right? Like it was totally my fault. So I try not to do that, man. I try, and that was a good stark reminder, hey, don't get complacent, especially in today's market, depending on where you're at. Like for Florida, as an example, I'm in Florida. We're just now getting hit from all the rate drops. Like our market over the last 4 or 5 months is just now being hit from the rate drops, and if you're not careful, it's really easy to lose money. You have to be extremely dialed in on your numbers.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting, right? I got into real estate post 08, 09 crash, but it is interesting that it, I guess, historically moves from west to east in terms of when the impact is felt, right? Like California gets hit first. We definitely have experienced that. Our market's Idaho, and things have been relatively flat this year, some up, some down, but relatively flat. But in 2022, got clobbered pretty good. And then 2023 up a little bit, this year kind of flat. So that is that's super interesting. What other markets are you buying or investing in right now?
So I stayed buying rentals in the Midwest. That's been my play. It was Milwaukee at the time. I actually, part of this experience over the past, 12 months where Florida's getting hit, I feel a little exposed. I don't control the market, but what I do control is market diversity. So, with exactly what you said, like when you watch the adjustments happen, whether it's boom or bust, California goes up first and they come down first. New York goes up first, they come down first. Then the secondary markets, the Vegases, the Arizona, the Idaho's, like the secondary markets, then get adjusted, and then it starts to kind of come out east. And the Midwest is rarely a big swing. It's up a
Right.
little, down a little. So I think market diversity is something I'm focused on now. So we opened up Southeast Michigan with the intent to buy, maybe a 30 or so rentals over the next 12 months. If we do half that, I'll be happy. If we do a fraction of that, I'll be happy. But I'd like to get 30, and I'd like to have access to a Midwest market. And I'm from Michigan originally. I know I have been a virtual guy my whole
Yeah.
investing career. I literally have never seen a single property. Like I've never seen my rental property. I've never even been to Milwaukee in my life.
Yeah. Yeah, but
Okay. But
so for people listening, that's insane to think about, by the way, right? A majority of people that have never bought a property or before, even if you have bought rental properties, the thought of that is absolutely terrifying. How did you get over that?
I just looked at it as a business and through the numbers and built good boots on the ground networks of people, primarily through agents that I built relationships and that I thought were competent and they were hard workers and I liked who they were. So, like if like the beauty of this industry is there's a lot of data. We have so much access to data, and then that's the science of it, which will get you probably 75% of the way. And then the art of it, what I believe is like your ability to work with people, right? So I'm working with a lot of agents, like boots on the ground. You end up with five or six agents that you kind of routinely go back to. You build trust with them. So I'm like, I'm about to do this deal in this area. Where do your numbers come in? They tell me where their numbers come in. We know where our numbers come in. We feel good about it. And it's a business. And I think it's actually helped me a lot more than you would imagine or people would imagine. I know you would, because there's no attachment to any of these properties. It's just a number thing. Like, it's just like, how much money did I make off of these houses in Milwaukee? How much money
Yeah.
did I make off these houses in Florida? That's it. If I'm not making money, what can I fix to make more money? If I am
Yeah.
making money, can I do more of that? What is it that we're doing that's winning so much? Let's do more of that.
100% agree. I started the same way, totally virtual. I have some properties that I've never seen before, and number one, it gives me freedom to live wherever I want to do. But number two, to your point, it gives you the ability to implement your systems and strategy wherever you want, and to have that diversity and to be able to pick a market. You can never time the market, but you can absolutely diversify when different things are going on in the macro that position you for future strength. So, how do you kind of evaluate that risk in managing your portfolio? Like, what was the impetus of like, I need to go buy some stuff in Southeast Michigan?
Well, part of it was from my active business and feeling exposed to a single market, right? Like Florida as an ecosystem, if that place, Florida kind of corrects, then I'm in a bit of trouble. It comes way harder than it already is. Like it doesn't need to be that hard because we are virtual. We can literally look at the data across the entire United States and go, where's the best place to do this
Yeah.
for what we're doing? And Michigan, what I wanted was more exit strategies. So just like we talked about earlier, it's like if I get into a house and I rehab it and I'm going to sell it, or if I try to wholesale it, like I can now also have a cash flowing exit strategy on a rental, which I love that. I love investing for cash flow. I'm not a big, like, I need $1 zillion of equity guy. I'll take some equity and appreciation and debt pay down, but cash flow is a security blanket for holding properties because the values mean nothing. The only thing that matters is if you got tenants paying rents so you can cover your debt. Then you
Yeah.
can weather any storm. So I just looked at the price to rent ratios across the nation, and the Midwest is just like it's just good. Like the Midwest is good. You look at Milwaukee or any of the Ohio markets, and Michigan. I gave Michigan the edge because I'm from there and I know those. I know the neighborhoods.
Yeah.
So that's where I grew up before I went to the military. I know the neighborhoods. I can see the exact house I would like if I saw this house that's in my mind, I would buy it as a rental right now. If I got an opportunity, I know exactly what it is. I don't even have to think about it. I know exactly what I want.
Yeah. Well, I think that this is a perfect segue too into how you're sourcing the deals and finding the deals, because once you implement that system in one market, sure, you're going to get new data and you're going to have some different challenges in comping and whatever and different contractors. But in terms of the system and sourcing the off market deals, what's working best for you now, and how easy is it going to be to implement that into Michigan?
Great question. I actually just gave a presentation on marketing recently, and I pulled data going back into 2023. Over 121 deals completed and $2 million in gross profits. I will tell you, we made 1 million of it was from pay per lead sources. I know people are like either love it or hate it, but 1 million, 50% of our revenue came from pay per lead sources.
Wow.
Direct mail has also, so basically direct to seller marketing. But if you're listening to this, like what's valuable is like pay per lead sources. And I'll tell you, most people think I'm crazy, but Need to Sell My House Fast has been our best pay per lead source. People are like, that thing's terrible. You like those leads are terrible. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. Like I also wish that to be true, but I'm making money off of it. I'm getting a 4-to-1 return and it's phenomenal. And there's a couple others in there that are okay too, but that one just stands out. Direct mail has always been a steady horse for us, and we've done everything: PPC, YouTube ads, Facebook ads, you name it. Run TV ads. We've done literally everything, and PPL has just been the best. Now it's not for everybody. You need to be able to spend money. It's I think I call them raw and net leads, or you would say unqualified and qualified leads, but
Yeah.
we're like just pure raw leads. I think when I looked at all 121 of these deals going back into 2023, it was 32 raw leads to a deal. Now, when we say raw leads with PPL, it's unique, obviously, because like we dispute like 40% of them.
Right.
40% of them are straight garbage.
Yeah.
So, we're probably 15 qualified leads, and we don't complicate being qualified. Do you have a house? Do you want to sell?
Right.
Yes, yes. Okay, good for me. We can talk.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, direct to seller marketing. And I'll tell you what, Ryan, like I'm being a wholesaler in Michigan, like I will buy deals from wholesalers all day. I'm in Florida, so doing it in Michigan, I built a system to buy deals from wholesalers. Like this whole like very systematic way to do it. We track our KPIs, like down to how I drive traffic to a single email, get every single wholesaler's deal in a market, like completely systematized into one single email. Then like our KPI tracker for this is like week 1 through 52. How many deals came into this inbox that week? 20. Great. Of those 20 deals, how many were in your buy box? 7. Of those 7 deals that were in your buy box, how many did you make a soft offer on? Right. So if you're a wholesaler, deal comes to you, you say, hey, I want this property. My soft offer before seeing it's going to be here. This is how I make people do business with us. So this is what I'm doing. So give me a soft offer. Here's my proof of funds. And then can I come walk it? Yep, you can come walk it. That's a KPI. How many did we make a soft offer on? How many did we walk? And how many did we get under contract?
Yeah.
So we track it. You can build a system around just buying deals from wholesalers who are doing all the nitty gritty work.
At Offer Now Idaho, we're looking to hire A players to run our organization and help us grow our business. Corey, why would somebody want to work with Offer Now Idaho?
Do you want to be challenged? Do you want to grow? Do you want to have people in your culture push you to be the best version of yourself? I do. And that's why I'm here. And in addition to that, do you want to have the chance at growing long-term generational wealth? That's all a possibility with a company that's small, cares about you, and wants you to be able to invest in real estate.
What's something that separates Offer Now Idaho from any other real estate company?
It's really rare to find a company that can help you get into a home. Sure, they might throw a few thousand into a 401k that you can access when you're 65. How many people are going to help you either provide a rental property or a shelter over your own head? Through our off-market home buying program, we assist our employees in buying properties once they've achieved certain levels within the company. And that's really unique to people because you get that asset. You get to do whatever you want with it. And you're buying an off-market discounted property to improve the quality of your life and your family's life.
Yeah, not only that, we offer benefits and we have a very challenging and high growth energy startup feel to our work environment. So we are looking for people that want to make over 6 figures a year. Right now, we have a $3,000 referral program. If you know somebody that's looking for a new role, we will pay you $3,000 once that person is hired by us and they hit their 90-day mark. So if you know of anybody that's looking for a new job or looking to change their life, shoot me a DM at RealRyanWeimer on Instagram.
Let's get it.
Interesting. I think you're the first guest that I've ever had that has a system for tracking other wholesalers' deals to purchase, but it makes a lot of sense, especially if you're trying to buy in multiple areas. If your strategic advantage in sales and marketing and all your data is in one market and you can keep churning out wholesale deals or whatever in one market, that allows you to be nimble to be able to buy assets in other areas and really diversify without like putting all your chips in on having this huge amount of spend. Because as we know, anytime you add another market, it's like a 6-month ramp up period to get the leads in, fill your pipeline up, to learn all the lessons. And that's a big cash outlay.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely is.
What in your PPL channels, I want to dive a little bit deeper into that and get your thoughts. By the way, we're right around that same those same numbers on Need to Sell My Home Fast and most PPL channels in general. I'm sure you've noticed over the past year, especially, the number of PPL providers has like doubled or tripled.
Yeah.
How do you go evaluating which ones you should or shouldn't try? What's your appetite for those? Like, how long do you give them? How long do you test them before you determine if it's worth keeping?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, I think so here I'll test pretty much anything. So I like to get ideally you get 3 months worth of so in marketing there's something called significance. So if you go to some digital marketer who's like running Facebook ads and doing all this funnel stuff, like they have this thing called significance, right? It's like you need to Facebook needs enough data. You need to spend enough money on meta ads for that to have significance to give you actual good data back. It's the same thing for our what I would consider dumb marketing, which is even if I'm just buying leads, I need to get 20, 40, 60, 100 leads before I can say like these aren't really doing anything for me. And what I do is so deals is the output. Like deals is the output. It's the end goal. But I look at every bit of conversion. I'll line them all up against each other and say how many are non-disputed, like actual people who have a house and want to sell. Okay, this one is 40%. This one is only 30%, so on and so forth. Then I'll look at how many did we get a hold of? How many get contacted, right? Because they're hard to get a hold of sometimes. Then I'll look at how many go to appointment. Then I'll look at how many get offers. And then I'll look at how many go under contract. So it's not just contracts, right? Because like I might sign up. I could buy 100 leads this next week, and I might not get a contract next week, but I'll definitely get a few contracts over the next 3 months from those leads that week. Because you need time. You have to nurture. Like the sales process is you're not just on the phone closing one call closes. That's like maybe 1 in 20. So it's like and I know my data. Like I'm 59 days from the time a lead hits my CRM to the time we sign the contract, on average, it's 59 days for us.
Yeah. Hugely valuable statistic to know for when you're putting marketing dollars in, that you're not hoping and praying and getting anxiety and nervous when you're going to get it back, right? Because
Yep.
that's the biggest, especially with direct mail, just because the cash conversion cycle is typically the longest. I know that's the one that makes people the most nervous to pull the trigger on, because you're sending out mail and you just hope that that phone rings.
Yeah, and we've sent a lot of mail, Ryan. We've sent probably 4 or 5 million pieces of mail.
Wow.
That's been our primary marketing channel since forever. That's our stuff. So, yeah, you're right. It's a slower burn, but it can be more targeted. You're going to get less random junk that you can't do much with. But yeah, of course, like 50% of the people that call in, like, take me off your list. Don't send me mail. And then maybe 50% of those are having a serious conversation with you. And it does take time. So if it's 59 days to get the contract, it's another 30 days to get money, cash conversion cycle, right? So from the time I send the marketing to the time I get money in my account, it's probably 90 days.
Yeah. Yeah. And that doesn't include the canceled ones too. So, you might have one out of how many deals canceled for whatever reason, title issues, or they lied about the condition, or you name it, right? I'm sure you've seen
every
it.
time.
Every time.
Every single time.
Yeah.
I just was talking to Lindsay in our company, and she's like, "Yeah, we got this house, but we're gonna have to go back, and it's gonna have to be cheaper because they didn't tell us there were 3 kitchens in it." It's like, oh, the old 3 kitchen, they got us.
Yeah, that wasn't on my bingo card. So just transitioning a little bit into, like, I know off camera we were talking before about creating an active income to then deploy into passive income and assets to generate real wealth. Can you talk to me about your philosophy on that? The passive income thing is really the sexy thing that people say with rental properties. And so a lot of people get really cash poor and just go for the passive income without really working on their active income first. Or they do the complete opposite, where they just wholesale and flip and they never hold anything themselves. Where do you fall on that spectrum?
Yeah, I think being on both sides of that coin, there's a relationship. There's a serious relationship between the two. And, in the groups that you and I are in, we see the flipper that's doing, he's got 30 flips going on at a time, and he's got $30 million of OPM employed. And I watched in July of 2022, I watched a couple really big flippers go, basically, like, it all evaporated. All their equity evaporated. It was not pretty. It was pretty ugly for them. And I'm thinking of 2 people in particular. And of course, these are great guys, by the way. They're really,
Yeah.
really good investors. And one guy had kind of like accidentally bought 70 rentals. He opened a market, and he was I mean, you're talking, this guy's doing 150 flips a year, 200 flips a year. Flips, not wholesale deals. No
Wow.
wholesale deals. His only exit was flips. And he went into a market and where he could exit his rentals. And because he bought those rentals, when he got crushed in July 22 on the drop, he wasn't dead in the water. He was able to climb back up out of that to today, where he's expanded his exit strategies. He's wholesaling. He's got even more assets now, and he's flipping a little more intentionally, so I saw those 2 people. One evaporates overnight. One has assets. I had already been an asset buying guy, but you don't build wealth flipping and wholesaling. Like, that's a misnomer. A lot of people sell you the dream. Like, you build this machine and then you go to the beach after you put all the right people in place. Like, that's not true.
Yeah.
That's not entirely true. And there are a handful who have kind of done that, probably not to that extent, but those people have been in the game for 20 years doing this.
Right.
They didn't do this in 5 years. They might have built an incredible multiple 7-figure business in 5 years, but they're still in their business today. Like, one of my mentors, Andy McFarlane is like a really good example. He was well known at one point and kind of like veered off the path that a lot of people are on, where you see him on podcasts and all that kind of stuff. And I just have such an immense respect for this guy. He's out in Utah. To this day, they still do a couple hundred deals a year, very quietly, like in the background. Like they're just insanely, insanely good. But they quit trying to grow to 15 million. They're good doing 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 million in a year, and they're just the most consistent company I've ever seen in my life. And they bought a lot of assets along the way over 20 years. But that guy is able to come out of his business, but he still owns a bunch of assets. Like the assets are the wealth builder. You can't just be Flipper Freddy and be cash poor all the time, the richest cash poor person you've ever met, because you just keep putting your money into all these flips, or you can't be just a wholesaler getting all this active income. And at the end of the day, if you don't go buy assets, you'll have nothing. And the opposite is true. You can't buy enough rentals to create meaningful wealth without increasing your active income in order to be able to get velocity. You just have to do it. Those two things are not exclusive of each other. Those are things that have to work in unison. And yeah, I think it's necessary. And like guys like us, Ryan, like we go to these rooms and how many deals you do this year? I did 5 million deals this year. I did $2 million in gross profit, $10 million in gross profit. None of that matters, by the way. Like, how much money did you put into your pocket matters, because that's why you started the business. And then like, what's your actual net worth? Right. Because that's the legacy that you have. That's the ability to tap into something that's yours, where you don't have to be on the hamster wheel to go get it. It's so important, man. I would implore. Now, if you're just getting started, like, yeah, if you're just getting started, you have to learn how to do it in an active way, because those skill sets will allow you to do the passive side at a really high level, right? You can't be, rental Rhonda, who's like me, dummy me, trying to save up 30, 40, 50 grand and buy a house. And then like, I'm out of money. It's like, I can't do that fast enough. I had to learn how to find deals off market at a discount, and I had to learn how to raise private capital to get velocity. So, and those skills came from the active side. I had to go learn the active skills so that I can employ them on the passive side. And I needed the passive to build this financial moat around myself so that I don't evaporate in one market change.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. The thing that you consistently underestimate too is the compounding effect that real estate has, and the ability to date the rate, right? So like when you buy a rental property or you keep a rental property, like your intention should be to keep that property forever. Unless there's another opportunity that presents itself with a higher ROI. But like when you buy the property, that should be your intention, because you get all the incredible compounding effects of loan pay down, of a hedge against inflation, of appreciation, of cash flow, right? Like all of these things together get better with time. And if you're expecting that in year 2 or year 3 or year 4 for it to meaningfully change your life, you get impatient and you start deviating from the plan, is where people, I think, get astray and get messed up, because they just get impatient. They set the wrong expectations with themselves about how long this is going to take. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I noticed with you, is just how long you've been doing this and how you seem to be completely obsessed with the process. Like originally it was this spreadsheet magic and it was an idea, but that got you started. And now it's just I just want to see how far I can go and how long I can keep doing this. Is that kind of how are you mapping out your future from here?
Yeah, man, it's just like, it's investing. So like, time in market beats timing the market. And it's the same thing with like what you brought up earlier with, you have to stick through this long enough to be successful. Like, to whatever your measure of success is. Like, what people get in here and they're like, it's not, but Ryan looks so much more successful than me, and they quit, and they're not in the market long enough. They don't hit that 2-year hedge fund time where everybody made $1 zillion, right? Like
Right.
whatever the next opportunity is, they're not, if they get out now, they're not going to hit that thing. So yeah, man, I think I love real estate. I just genuinely love real estate. It is the most powerful tool I grew up in Detroit. You know, my mom was legitimately a crackhead. She died when I was 17. My dad was like this, an abusive drunk and married multiple women, all kids, all these people. So like I came from nothing, man. And for a guy like me to be able to build a multi-million-dollar net worth, like it just is like, dude, this is anybody can do this. Like anybody can do this. And the vehicle that the US government has given us to do it in a rapid way is real estate. It's just the fastest way for a norm. I'm not saying it's the only fast way to do it. I'm just saying for a normal middle class, lower middle class, or even lower class person to be able to build meaningful wealth. The barrier to entry is so low. It is so low, man. And anybody can do it. And it's a great vehicle, like you said. You know, like you can't even imagine. Like, I'll tell you something. Some of those rental properties that I bought early on at market value, where I brought all my cash to it, over 4 years, like they had gained a bunch of equity, and the cash on cash is like not great, right? Like maybe 10 or 12%, and those were like really good ones. And I bought them at market value, but my return on equity was bad. So as you go along and you get experience, you start to learn about things like return on equity. So I had this like couple $100,000 opportunity come that was going to increase my free cash flow like way faster. And I was able to realize that equity in those gains because this opportunity came, and I took that and I went and got a better return. But I never get to do that if I don't do the thing that I know how to do and I'm learning how to do right now. And also, like, then I'm making all this money, and I'm like, last year, I mean, I'm not I'm not the biggest guy. I just love doing this stuff. Like, I net to me personally was 600 grand. I'm like, dude, what am I going to do? I'm going to have to pay like this six figure tax bill. Like, this is going to be super painful. And I was doing a tax strategy call early last year, and my CPA is like, dude, you got to go buy apartments. So I went and bought apartments because that opportunity came. You know what my tax bill was last year? I just got my taxes finished, by the way, from 23. $1,500.
Wow.
I paid my CPA $2,500 to do the taxes.
Yeah. Yeah. Almost zero. Almost zero.
Almost zero, man. Opportunities. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So.
And I'm sure your passion behind what you do and the evolution from where you started has to play into why, seven-figure flipping in your coaching program is I guess it really fills your cup. Can you talk to me more about like what that does for you personally? Because you could be, doing 300, 500 deals a year, but a part of you, it feels like, wants to share this with others and build their financial futures up.
Yeah, man, I don't know if it's where I came from or how I grew up or my time in service to the country. I got so many opportunities to lead people in the military and serve other people and help other people be successful. It's like I got addicted to that. Like, how can I make people become the best version of themselves? And how can I help them be successful? Because what I found is the more I did that, the better I did. Like, I just kept ascending in the things that I was doing in life. And I'm super passionate about real estate, and I love helping people, man. I think it's just part of my personality. It's like, dude, there's no secrets. Like, I don't know, like the stuff we do is, I don't know if these guys want to keep secret. Like, there's no secrets. Like, I'll tell you anything. Like, I'm trying, like, I'll tell people all the time, like, hey, what are you doing for marketing? Like, I'm trying this, and this. I'm trying this. I don't have good results. This is working. This isn't working. But I love the community. And also, by the way, the speed that I bought was from Seven Figure Flipping. Before I came an owner, I was a member. So I kind of felt like I owed so much of my ascension to that community, and that it was just like really strong. And then when I became part owner of that company, when I got to become the CEO of that company, like what a great transition to go from serving in one aspect of my life to being able to serve in another aspect of my life. And I just love doing it, man. I really do. It does fill my cup, man. It makes me like, it's the thing that like, yes, this is fun. And then when it sucks, like I get to call guys like you or talk to guys like you, like, oh my gosh, I'm losing money on this flip. It doesn't feel like it hurts as bad because we're in
Yeah.
the military. In the military, we have shared misery. We build such camaraderie through shared misery. It's not different in entrepreneurship, and entrepreneurship is lonely, man. You take on all the risk, like you're the boss, like you have to show up every day for your team and be ready to go and keep encouraging them through the hard times. And do we have them? Yeah, oh yeah, we have them. Little weird stuff going on in the market. You spend a bunch of money on marketing, but you don't get as many deals that month. What is going on? Like that happens sometimes. So having that shared misery and being a part of communities, being able to hang out with guys and just, talk shop and be like, this was terrible. It sucks. It's like, good. It's supposed to.
How many people are a part of seven figure flipping?
That's a good question. Probably 200 or 300
Two or
businesses.
300. As the CEO, like what's the hardest part about managing isn't the right word, but like what's the biggest challenge in coaching at scale like that? Because you're pouring into people, pouring into people, pouring into people. I'm curious what you would say is the biggest challenge there.
Yeah, I think part of it is you are so committed to people's success that when you see like when they're in the struggle, like you feel it a little bit for them, but you know the path to get out of that. Like, look, man,
Yep.
this happens. This is part of the business. You don't want to crush them. You want them. You know what's right on the other side of that struggle. Like you're right there. You're right there. So just kind of seeing sometimes there's the struggle that we all go through, and it's like, man, I wish I could just like wave the magic wand and make you successful faster.
Right.
And, people are all different, man. Like, not everybody's the best at jumping on the phone. Not everybody's the best at building the spreadsheet. And it's like, finding people's strengths and helping them to really excel in their best way. I think when we get an opportunity to coach and we get that, that's a big deal, man. When you're coaching other people in this industry, that's a big deal that we should all, anybody who does this should take very seriously. And I think sometimes we project too much. This is how I did it. Doesn't mean that's going to be the best path for them. I think understanding all those people and how you can help them. And I'll tell you what, man, like I'm every day in there with people. Like people
Yeah.
are like in my, we were messaging, I'm helping anybody I can. We had this really awesome, this friend, Kelly, she's in the community and, she's going to be a flipper and she's like a smart, driven woman. She is incredible. She's just incredible. Like the minute I met her, I was like, she's going to crush. Like she's just way too driven to not win. And she gets going and she's going to be a flipper and she's doing a little bit of marketing, like niche list calling and texting and all this stuff. And 5 months goes by and she gets on with me. She's like frustrated. She's like, it's not working. And I'm like, let me see your data. Look at her data. I'm like, top of your funnel's not full enough. You don't have enough leads, like period. Like it's not going to happen, right? You got to open up top of the funnel. Opens up top of the funnel, calls me the next week. I got a deal under contract. And so she opens up the top of the funnel a little bit, gets a deal under contract, which actually wasn't causation. Like it wasn't because she opened up the top of the funnel. It was just because finally during her nurture, this person was ready.
Right.
Next day gets a second deal. So she was going to flip. She was all in on flipping. And she decides was like, I can't flip two at once. Like, what, can I wholesale one? I'm like, yeah, let's wholesale it. We get on, I show her how to find a buyer real quick. Like she hadn't been looking at any of the wholesale stuff. I mean, in 48 hours, she had $40,000 assignment.
Wow.
Like that's why we do this. It's like, dude,
Yeah.
that is life changing, man. That is amazing. So, and then the other one ended up falling through, but she was like, it was such a cool ride I was on with her. And she's like, why would I ever flip houses? Like, this is way better. This
Oh,
is
I
so
love that,
cool.
man. And I'm curious to get your thoughts here, but I have found with the people that are in the Real Freedom community, and also with my own salespeople that we've brought on, it took you, it sounds like 5 months to get your first off market deal. It took me 8 months. The people that get their deal in like the first 30 days or even the first 60 days tend to have a shorter shelf life, because then that becomes their new expectation of what's going to
Hmm.
happen. I have found that the longer it takes you to get a deal, the more set up for success you are for multiple years and forever. Have you found that to be the case too?
For sure, because it actually has nothing to do with the deal. It has everything to do with the amount of time and the activity you did during that time.
Yep.
So those two things matter. Like if that person who, like you, 8 months, you were working, dude. You were working, and along the way, your skill level is elevating. So by the time you get that first deal at 8 months, your skill level, instead of being where it was at 4 months, is like way up here. Now it feels so much easier going forward. You're like, oh yeah, like now it just, in your mind, you're probably going, it just works now. It just works. Like, oh, it must have just started working. No, it didn't just start working. Your skill level rose, you gained experience, and now you're getting momentum and traction. So yeah, I totally agree. I think that, time and activity over time is like, is a predictor, because if you're doing the activity, if you're doing all the things that you're telling, if the people in your community are like doing what you're coaching them to do and they're working hard, they get that deal at 6, 7, 8 months, like, man, that's such a game changer. They get the belief, they've got the skill now they're gaining momentum. But if they get it in that first month, their skill level is low, their activity is low, and their time in it is low. They just don't have enough. So when they go the next 8 months after getting that deal, they're like, this sucks, this doesn't work,
Yep.
Ryan lied, this is
Yep.
all fugazi.
100%. 100% agree, man. Well, I just want to thank you for all the value that you give, and being one of the few people who is a top level coach and has a program that's overly transparent, and just like you're truly an open book versus other people that don't want to give away their secrets and say that they have an abundance mindset, but deep down they really show that they have a scarcity mindset. So, Adam, where can people go to find out about seven figure flipping and what you guys are all about?
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. You can check us out, fliphackinglive.com. We do a public event. It's virtual. It's $97. 3 days, October 10th, 11th, 12th. Check us out there, man. We try to give in a massive way at that event. And people love it, man. That's the event that changed my life. I'd love to have your listeners or whoever's listening to this come, and hopefully we can help change your life too.
Hell yeah. Awesome, man. Any last thoughts or parting thoughts for the audience?
Oh man, Ryan, I'm just grateful you had me on here. I know you and I got connected. I'm glad we did. I've been following you, watching what you're doing. Always impressive, genuinely high character person. I try to really be connected with people just like you, man.
I love that. That means a lot to me. I appreciate your kind words. To the audience, go check out Adam. He's an absolute sniper. He's a killer. And he really means what he says. And you can feel the authenticity just right off the screen, or if you're listening to this, right out of your headphones from what he says. So we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.